I've been living with just 14 items to try and see what I am comfortable living with or living without as an extreme minimalist. For any of you who is new to this channel, I currently have around 80 personal possessions, and I try to sometimes adapt that to see what perhaps is the least amount of items that I could live with comfortably, and how realistic it is when some people sort of have these super extreme amounts. Now, some people may think only 80 possessions is a super extreme amount, but there are people out there with sort of under 20 personal items that they live with. For more details on what inspired this video, please go back to the first video in this series, which I'll link down below, which is living with only 14 items for a bum bag challenge. And basically, yes, that is what it sounds like. It is because I'm attempting to live with, new bag arrived by the way, I'll tell you all about that in a minute. I'm attempting to live with just the items that can either fit on my person or in this bum bag. I currently have my hoodie that I was wearing in the first video in the wash. This is obviously one of the tank tops that here in England we call a vest, that I also included in that count. And I've found a few good tips and tricks along the way that I'm going to share in this video, but really I'm attempting to live with just the stuff that will either fit on my person or in this bum bag, which is 14 items. And I'm also doing this because at some point I would like to travel for quite an extended period of time with just this bum bag. And I've already learned a few things. So the first things perhaps being that I've learned through just in the UK, our own climate, but also a lot of like advice I've had in the comments and things of people who do regularly travel with small amounts of items. Now, I'd like to think even here on my channel, you know, although it might not be a lot of travel, I do usually go away sort of about 3 times a year, and I usually go with a very small, for some of you who can remember that have been here a bit longer, I have a little tiny backpack. I had to just stop there for a second because my camera had got full and I needed to make some room on my iPhone for all the stuff I've been filming, because I have been actually daily vlogging every day as well, sort of over on my Patreon, to prove that I'm actually doing this challenge. Here are some thumbnails as well to sort of show all that I've been putting over on my Patreon. So I have been attempting to live with just this bum bag, and I've come across quite a few things that make it a little bit tricky, and I wanted to see how realistic it is for people that live with sort of under 20 items. And I've come across a few issues even here in the climate of the UK. Now, when I started this challenge, I hoped that we would have a warm June. Now, sometimes we do get warm Junes here in England, but I have not been so lucky. We're sort of at the time of filming 10 days into this. Obviously, it's going to come out at the halfway mark though for the challenge. And the main problem I've had so far is that when I included 2 tank tops, a hoodie and a t-shirt, I hoped that some days it would be very warm and I would be able to wear my shorts and my vest and give me an opportunity to wash the other things that wasn't too imposing on my time. But because it has actually been perhaps one of the coldest Junes on record to this point, some days it's been like 9 degrees, I've found myself needing to wear my vest, my t-shirt and my hoodie every day, because I also didn't include a coat, which a few of you pointed out in the comments, because I was really trying to do it how it would be if I go away to a hot country, and hoping that June would be warm enough here in the UK. But the fact is, it's just not been warm enough. Now, I've not broken and like actually included my own coat, but I'm going to tell you a few things that I've had to adapt. To be completely transparent, there have been about 3 days where it has been so cold that despite actually, you know, wearing a vest, tank top, a t-shirt and a hoodie, I have been cold, and I've borrowed my partner's fleece on 3 occasions, which shows really I should have included, you know, a jacket, sort of taking me up to 15 items. I also have had so much trouble with my hair. And moving forward, I think that what I would actually advise if anybody wanted to have a go at doing a challenge like this themselves is, unless you have got straight hair or curly hair with no fringe, it's going to be really, really difficult for you. Like, the amount of things that I've done, I'll include a few clips for you, but so initially wearing my headband to set my fringe worked a bit, but it didn't work perfectly. You know, my fringe would sort of end up sort of curled over to the sides a little bit, but it did help flatten it down a bit. One day I borrowed a hat to actually try and completely flatten my hair down. That was when I'd really got to the end of my tether with it after about 8 days. One little piece. Oh no, that's going to be annoying. Which is why it's looking so flat at the moment, because I've not washed it since I managed to get it to be a bit flat. I even, another day, tried to just scrape it all back, but the only problem is that when you scrape all your hair back as somebody with really curly hair, it's okay while it is completely wet, but as soon as it starts to dry, you get all these wispy bits around here. How I've managed to make it look not too bad today in terms of having like little frizzy bits around here is I got my shea butter and completely plastered it back to try and act like a gel. It worked a bit, but you still get the odd bit that's a bit bigger flicking forward. So some people might not mind that. It's what you are personally comfortable with. But I've learned that I am definitely not comfortable while I have a fringe. I've learned that moving forward, if I was ever going to attempt to try like this again, I would definitely wait for my fringe to grow out. It's been an absolute nuisance. I've tried everything known to man. So the first little break, I suppose you could say, that isn't even a borrow, but what I've actually had to reintroduce at the 9-day mark was yesterday. I was just, no matter what I tried, I could just not control the burden of my curly hair. And I actually introduced just a normal hair elastic, because having the headband is great to be able to scrape it back, put it in a bun, have it in a ponytail. But on some days where you want to also tie it back, but also just have it all off your face, you then need an extra bobble, obviously. Now, something that I don't think I've actually even ever discussed on my channel is I consider just hair elastics a consumable item. And I will count things like my headband, my hair clip, and my green sort of hair bobble that has a ribbon on it as a, you know, a normal possession, because we keep them for longer. But with my hair being so thick that when I buy the hair elastics, they only usually last a couple of weeks until they break. So I have a pack that I go through, I cycle through. So to me, they're consumable because I go through them quicker than toothbrushes to a degree. So technically, complete transparency, I have introduced another consumable item. So I know we were at 18 consumable items with my toothbrush, which I forgot in the last video. And so now with this introduction of the hair bobble, we're actually at 19 items considering all my consumables as well. Without my consumables, we're still at 14 items, but technically I know that I should have perhaps introduced a coat. And although this isn't a problem now because we haven't been having much sun in the UK, another really good pointer that some of you pointed out in the comments to me is it's been a tricky one for me, because I've been trying to plan for if I go away, but also knowing I'm here in the UK, and that's somewhere in between as a confused what I thought I might need. For instance, if I'm in the UK, I need a coat, but if I went away, I probably definitely need sunglasses. As somebody who has blue eyes, I don't know whether this is a thing, but everybody that I know that has got blue eyes, they have really, really, really sensitive eyes. You know, maybe people have sensitive eyes that have brown or any colour eye, but I don't know. But when I go out in the sun, it makes my eyes absolutely stream with water. And I really regret not including sunglasses. And interestingly, somebody did mention to me in the comments that there is an American guy who lives with 15 items and a lady called Peace Pilgrim that also lives with 15 items. I'll include the name of the person that mentioned that in the comments, give you a little bit of credit for that, because I did check it out. It's very interesting. And what they both included, perhaps not Peace Pilgrim, but the other person, because I found a list of what he does actually use, because I think it's interesting to see what people think is their baseline of items that they would need. He did have sunglasses, and perhaps it's just not something we think as much about in the UK because sun isn't a problem we have very often. But it can get bright. Even though we don't have sort of warm weather and sun that often, it can even get bright. And especially living near the coast, the sea sort of really reflects. So basically what I'm getting at is, so far I am missing a coat, I'm missing sunglasses, I was missing having some extra kind of bobble to tie my hair up, and guys, I am missing my laptop. But it has been such a good experience and trial to do this, even 10 days in, because I was getting to the point in doing my YouTube videos and even in my everyday life with everything going on, you know, we all have personal lives, work life, blah blah blah, that getting my camera out, getting my laptop out, transferring it across, doing all the things sometimes felt a bit, you know, finicky, annoying. And I thought, oh, I'm really missing those days when I just filmed on my iPhone and airdropped it across and blah blah blah. And then even before I did that, before I had my Mac, I would just film on my iPhone, edit on my iPhone, and I even found myself missing the simplicity of doing that. But what this experience has done for me is really make me think about actually what is simplicity and what is convenience. And I think it's not being extreme about either thing, even with the technology. For instance, just editing on my iPhone has created all kinds of problems. Like, for instance, on iPhone, you cannot turn on your end cards for your videos, which is obviously something that most creators on YouTube want to do. But that's not allowed in the mobile app of iPhone. You can't really precision edit. So unless you want to just turn on your camera, film a 12-minute video with not really many breaks, i.e. cuts, it's difficult to precision edit. So for instance, say I go blah, 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 and I stutter my words or mix a word up, which I occasionally do and leave in. But if it's really bad, I want to try and edit that out. But because I'm talking in such quick consecutive succession, it's really hard just to edit that 2-second glitch out. And I'm sure some of you have noticed in a couple of the videos, there are a few little audio glitches where I've attempted to do that. But I've still wanted to make good, you know, interesting videos with cutaways and things, even though I'm only editing on my iPhone. But it's learned me to actually value that little bit of effort it takes to get my Mac out, get my camera out, transfer things across. Because although that's maybe 5 minutes extra to do that each day, and it means carrying my camera around with me perhaps to vlog or film if I want to, the added convenience and simplicity is that then it is so much easier to edit. I have a bigger screen to look at, I can make the timeline bigger to sort of really precision edit. It saves my eyesight, it saves scrolling back across, because when you try to edit on the iPhone, if you get to the end and then sometimes it clicks out, you have to go right back through your timeline again, and it is so tricky to try and edit videos with cutaways and things and in-screen images on an iPhone. I think it really only works for the people that are willing to just do pieces to camera, perhaps do a nice little dissolve to a different scene. That's really the only type of video I think it works for. Now, what else did I have to update you all on other than the things I was missing? What I found so far about how I've had to try and do my hair? Oh, the bag. So the bag, you know, I waited about a week and I thought I want to really research what bag I want. I was adamant that I wanted the bag to be really small. I have been away, like I've said, with just 5 litre little sling bags or even a little mini 5 litre backpack. But believe it or not, even with just sort of a 5 litre or even 10 litre bag, you really can get quite a lot in it. And then it becomes about the weight and even how much it seems really silly, but how much it even protrudes off your back. And we had this experience in Amsterdam last year where we had to have our bags with us all day, and it was a really hot day in the middle of summer. Our backs were just like lathered in sweat from carrying these backpacks around. Not backpack, sorry, I always say backpack. Day pack, it was tiny. I say backpack for everything. I don't know whether it's a colloquial expression. Tiny day packs, but they were heavy. They were really quite heavy. And it was more to do with the annoyance of how big they protruded. And every time we turned round in the crowds, like specifically if you're in a city, we kept banging people kept bumping into us. I think even for security, if it's on your back, you have to be really mindful about who's behind you. Whereas I suppose if you've got a bag that you're either wearing across you or on your front, you know, it's more secure as well. I just like the idea of how little it is. And what I'm thinking so far, 10 days, but 14 days for you guys, because obviously I have to film it a little bit before I'm uploading it. It takes a while to upload, you know. I like the fact that this is so small, and I couldn't find here in the UK easy access to any smaller bags. Like, for instance, there's a packed bag that I think is about 3 or 4 litres, a sling bag, but I can't find a site. Please let me know in the comments, even though I've got this one, I'd be interested to know for future, where if we go onto the US site, we have to pay importation fees, and it ends up being so much more money than it is for like US people to buy, you know, US customers. And also the Tom bin, I haven't found a site where we can access that in the UK. If somebody could even let me know about that. So we're really like limited for access to good bags. So the Patagonia ones, which is normally something I'd go for, they were like really big bulky ones that like they were calling full hip packs that go all the way around you, and I really feel like I was like wearing a tire or something with them. But I normally love Patagonia, but I just didn't like the designs of their bum bag / hip pack / fanny pack, or whatever you're saying. So this is the only one I could get that was sort of recycled. You know, it's made from recycled materials. It's 3 litres. And I always sort of go for beiges and greens as well, just so that it sort of all does. 1 second. Running out of battery. Just so that it all sort of does match my wardrobe and doesn't clash, because that's another thing you've got to think about when you've got a very, very small wardrobe. So let me just check my notes and see if there's anything else that I wanted to tell you all. And guys, I'm so sorry if I keep looking at the viewfinders, because that's where I look when I'm on the camera, and I can't remember that when I'm on the iPhone I'm supposed to look over there. So sorry. Now let me just check. So the final thing that I wanted to tell you all on this sort of halfway update is another little thing that's been quite interesting to witness and notice since I've been doing this trial. Is it really does make you mindful of all the things that you use and borrow that are either household items or that would be potentially hotel items if you are traveling. For instance, what I've actually been doing, because we've had such bad weather in the UK and I've had to wear nearly all my clothes every day, is I have been sitting around in our household towel every morning while I wash and dry my clothes, or taking them off, washing them on a night, but then turning on the dryer on the morning. So it has been a bit of a logistical fuss because the weather has been so bad, which shows that it would only ever be really appropriate for somebody living in a very hot but dry heat environment. And that was the thing I think I was going to talk about earlier before I got cut off with the phone camera, is people did tell me in the comments that you also have to think when you're traveling about if it is a damp, humid environment, because clothes won't dry either. So that's another thing that I've learned. You've really got to really think about your environment and how things easily would dry or not dry. The other thing is I've been mindful about the fact that obviously I would borrow towels a lot. So you would definitely want the places you were traveling to have towels. Also, I've been mindful that if I go to the shops in general, we have, you know, a shared shopping tote that we use to go to the shops. So perhaps if I was traveling, I would need a shopping tote to bring groceries back to my Airbnb or my hotel room. But obviously that's something that you can't really prepare for, and you could just buy there, and you could even leave sort of in the room when you left if you didn't want to carry it. So there are items like that as well that you could sort of use but then discard. You could thrift them, use them while you were there, get rid of them. I even started thinking about services that you could use as somebody being a super extreme minimalist. For instance, because I have nearly broke and reintroduced my hair straighteners in this challenge, I thought, what could I do how could you live if you really relied on hair straighteners for comfort? You know, for it not to feel all itchy around your face, because that's the main reason I use it. what could you do? And I thought, well, I suppose if money wasn't, if there was no expense to be spared and you really just wanted to not have many items, you could book yourself in for a blow dry once a week at the hairdressers and just go 7 days without washing your hair. If, as some people pointed out, it'd do their absolute head in, not having a nail file. You could book yourself in for a manicure once a week, but that all relies on obviously spending money. But there are lots of ways that perhaps you could be more minimal if you also paid for services. And that is perhaps something that I'm realising more and more about people with super extreme lifestyles perhaps, is that it relies on borrowing a lot of things and also paying for services because you don't want to actually be carrying those items around, i.e. particularly if you were travelling, you really wouldn't want to buy them just for a short period of time, unless perhaps you had got it second hand and then gave it on to somebody else. There are ways and means around that, but it's all a lot of thinking. So I hope you've enjoyed this little update on how I've been living with just a bum bag. Who knows what is going to happen in the next 14 days. Obviously it's really it's not 18 because I'm not doing 28 days, I'm doing 30 days. So really I've still got 20 days left. So I think the 8th is my last day, because I started on the 10th of June. So the 8th of July or 9th of July will be my last day. So I'm getting pretty, my hair is really starting to annoy me. I'm wondering whether I will pay for a blow dry service, but I'm trying not to break, because what I also wanted to do on this challenge is really embrace being natural and having the curly hair and not sort of doing anything to my face or whatever. But we'll see how long I can last before I'm really at the end of my tether with it. The fringe is the biggest problem. I can't believe I cut my fringe in 6 months ago. If I didn't have the fringe, I think it would be okay. Right guys, I'll let you know how I get on, obviously at the end of this trial. And until then, there are a lot more videos to come. Regular videos on minimalism. Bye.